Well, joining us from New York, Huguette Labelle, who chairs Transparency International. It conducted that survey. And in the studio, Wendy Addison, who blew the lid on corporate corruption at a South African firm back in the year 2000. Well, welcome to you both. We'll start with you, Wendy. You blew the lid on a company, LeisureNet. It had 8,000 employees and at the time was described as a darling of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. But two of the CEOs were embezzling money. You blew the whistle on them. You were congratulated, right?
No, not at all. In
What
fact,
happened?
I was constantly dismayed at the vitriol that arose out of the action that I took. Shortly after blowing the whistle, I got a number of death threats, and they came anonymously through emails, phone calls. When I went on radio in South Africa thinking that I'd done the right thing, the number of callers that came in with awful messages that they had to actually keep back because it was a live show was horrendous.
Justification being what exactly?
I think this is a human behavioural issue, in that I think when one stands outside the group and the group conformity, one is often scapegoated. And I think in terms of whistleblowers, this is often the case.
Well, let's put that to Huguette then. You've set up and established this study in your organisation, really trying to help people who want to whistleblow. But what of this behaviour that people go against people like Wendy, criticising her for speaking out?
Well, we do see that in many places where whistleblowers receive reprisals of various kind, and sometimes even firing from the organization where they are. And that's why we say ensure that you have strong legislation protecting whistleblowers, but also a system in place so that people feel free to be able to identify any fraud, anyone stealing from the organization, or having seen a public servant asking for a bribe, for example, to someone. So this is very important because reprisals is one of the things that prevents people from going forward and indicate that something has gone wrong. Mind you, another group feels that nothing would happen anyway. So, these are the two big issues with reporting bribes.
They're enormous issues, and according to your study, you're saying that it's endemic. How can we really tackle it?
Yeah. Well, it's not just one thing that will make the difference. First of all, leadership in governments makes a huge difference, and you need to start there. You need the right laws, you need the right systems, the right regulations, but they need to be enforced, because sometimes you have those, but they're not enforced. On one hand, the leaders have to show the way. But at the same time, people have to become more engaged. And I think wise governments go towards participative democracy, where people are engaged in planning, in overseeing budget, especially at the local level, but not only, because that's where a lot of the corruption takes place. You have construction. Where you have construction and procurement, there's big money. And when there's big money, the hazard is much higher for bribes, for collusion, and then what you get is very often shoddy construction that kills people, as we've seen in Bangladesh. So I think that, you need the two. You need the rule of law, a judiciary that works, a police that's there for the people. You need governments that are clean, and then you need people to be engaged at the same time. And I just want to say a word about the G20 and G8, because it's not only what happens within countries, which is important, but also between countries.
Yes.
And we have to, make sure that you don't have those fiscal havens or bank secrecy that makes it possible for leaders who steal the resources of their country to hide them somewhere in our own countries.
Okay, and just to come back to you, Wendy, it took 11 years, but those two CEOs have now been jailed. Do you think you've set up this organisation, Speak Out, Speak Up, to try to help other whistleblowers? Do you think the landscape is changing? Because it sounds a pretty bleak picture from where I'm sitting here now, listening to this.
It is a bleak picture, and so it makes the work that much harder. But it's a worthwhile effort, and there is hope. And I would like to say that I blew the whistle 13 years ago, and yes, indeed, it took me 11 years to see justice. But I can confirm that there's a huge change in policy, there's a huge change in legal systems that are protecting whistleblowers. So going forward, I think we have a little better systems to support people speaking out against wrongdoing.
Okay, well, thank you for coming here today, Wendy Addison, and from New York, Huguette Lebel. Thank you so much. And you can join in the debate, as we say, running in this special series of projects. If you want to join in, how does your country, the country you live in, rank among others in terms of corruption? You can find out by visiting the BBC News website, trying out our interactive corruption map of the world. We've used all available data to map how it's perceived in 95 countries around the world. You can take a look and see what public bodies are seen as the most corrupt in your country, perhaps then do something about it. For much more then on that corruption series, you can go to bbc.com/news.